We all know at this stage that the Nintendo Switch has games that release in a terrible state. It's not always the case, but it seems to be more often than not these days, so this series aims to go back and revisit games once they've been all patched up. If you enjoy this content, then let me know down in the comments. I love reading them. We're going to take a look at a few games: Metal Slug Tactics, DROVA, Yakuza, Caravan, Sandwich, and of course the GTA Remastered Trilogy. So, have these games been all patched up? Well, my name is Mark Walker, welcome back to SwitchUp. Now let's find out. Kicking off with Yakuza, it launched in quite a good state and Sega clearly had put in the effort, but here were some of my initial issues. You will see a number of short hitches, frame pacing issues, and unfortunately a couple of stutters. They're at their absolute worst when you're in the city streets because of the number of pedestrians. Booting up the game now, I do see some improvement in the overall stability. As you can see, it can maintain its 30 frames per second in the city area a little better than before. However, it is worth noting that I didn't have a save file in one of the most troublesome spots, so I had to boot up a previous save right at the start of the game to get the city footage, and that doesn't actually have access to all areas. With that said, we still can see a couple of very minor stutters, a few minor frame pacing issues, but during some of the sequences that previously did cause me some problems, I have experienced better frame rates, so that is good. This episode is sponsored by Star Trek Fleet Commander. It's a strategic game where you recruit legendary characters. Legendary like Picard, the absolute man. You watched Star Trek, haven't you?
You've seen Star Trek.
Yeah. You get to crew iconic ships from the series, embark on missions across the Star Trek universe. I would say to boldly go, Glen.
Where no one's
been before.
Ah, there we go.
Engage in global battles, form alliances, and gather resources to upgrade your fleet. And you can also play seamlessly with PC and mobile.
You can use our code in the description or scan the QR code to download the game for free on mobile or PC as you shape the galaxy's future with your strategic command.
The game's constantly being updated. The Continuum update allows you to unlock a variety of new things, including chaos tech, there's new buildings, as well as 3 new officers. On top of that, you're looking at new avatars, frames, and this is the 6th anniversary event.
There are new unlocks including 20 plus new core and side missions, new Vindicator refit, 12 new avatars as Mark mentioned, 7 new frames and 1 new hailing frequency.
Nice one. There is even more. Players can redeem the promo code CRUSHERS to get 2 full officer unlocks and a full unlock of the jellyfish once the player hits Ops 18 completely free. The ship gift will just become visible at 18 for anyone who claims it. The promo runs from now through to January the 15th, and that associated jellyfish bundle is live until 7 days after. Don't forget to use our link or scan the QR code to download the game. It obviously supports the channel a little, and you can support the galaxy, Glen.
Absolutely. Make it so.
I absolutely loved Caravan Sandwich when it came out, but I chiefly played it over on PC just because the processing power of the Switch just couldn't handle it. Here's what I said about performance. Now, performance on the Nintendo Switch version, it is struggling a little bit when you're in the vehicle. You'll notice in some of the footage, especially when you're moving quickly, it will drop below 30 frames per second. Now, we have spoken to the developer about that and they are working on fixes, but we also will say that when you're on foot, things are noticeably better. And with the latest patch 1.0.5, here's how the frame rates are holding up, and as you can see, it is really struggling. You're looking at anywhere between 17 FPS and 25, and it was a strange one because when I looked beneath the hood, it was actually the CPU rather than the GPU that was causing all the issues. Quite annoying really when Nintendo clock the handheld performance. I think it's at 1 GHz for a CPU that can happily run at 2 GHz. And in fact, on the Tegra Shield was running much higher than it is on the Switch, but it's classic conservative Nintendo. What it sadly means though is that the Switch version, in my opinion at least, is never going to hit fluid frames per second, at least until the next generation comes out and we can just run all of these games on hardware that can actually manage it. That is going to be nice, isn't it? Just taking your catalogue, and I can see a whole new series of all patched up aimed at just trying out games and seeing how they run on the new hardware. Is that something you'd like to see? The nerd in me definitely wants to see that. But Caravan Sandwich, the open world areas run much better than this, as they always did. It's just this town area, and anything that's a bit more built up, it struggles heavily. Still a very good game. I'd recommend it if you saw it on sale. Metal Slug Tactics. This is one of my favourite games of the year actually. A brilliant take on the tactics genre, while still maintaining the flavour of Metal Slug. Here are my initial thoughts on the performance before the patch. I did notice that some of the very large stages, where you have upwards of 20-25 enemies, there was some performance drop here. Generally the game's targeting 60 frames per second, which is as it should be in my opinion for this style, but yeah, some of those bigger, longer stages, they did suffer, and they need to do a bit of work there in terms of performance. With the release of the patch, there's a few things I was hoping for. I don't personally think the game needs to run at 60 frames per second, because on Switch it can't, and in a tactics game, frame rates aren't the key factor, it's stability. As you can see, they haven't locked it to 30 or given you that option, not as far as I can see at least, and it means once again you get quite a few fluctuations between 30 and 60. It still does feel a little smoother than it did when it first launched, and a very big fix actually that they have addressed are some of the stutters. You had these selection stutters where you would choose a new unit or something on the screen and there'd be a really big pause. I don't know whether that was related to the screen shake, which you could turn off. I think that just exacerbated the issue, but they've definitely made some improvements there. Aside from performance though, there were a number of bugs. Now, they've fixed a few of those. Lots of them relate to the UI, changing font sizes, increasing the font actually for all of the pop-ups, and that was a big issue. You just couldn't read a lot of the stuff on screen, so you shouldn't have an issue with readability anymore on Switch. They've added in the missing sound effect for Picard's totem swap, and about 30 bug fixes have been implemented. I won't go through them all, but they relate to things that you do all the time, so hopefully you'll see some big improvements as far as that goes. Overall, a solid first patch for the game, with still some work to be done. I do want to include GTA the Remastered Trilogy here. I did a whole video on it that's got like 150,000 views, which is amazing. So probably most of you already know. But in case you didn't, Rockstar have essentially stripped Grove Street Games from the project entirely. Now, some people were speculating that their name had also been removed from the game, but it hasn't. It's in the end credits. It's just not at the very beginning on the splash screens. Quite a savage move from Rockstar after what we've heard since this patch has come out, that Grove Street actually had a bunch of these fixes ready to go, but I think the backlash was so great that Rockstar kind of just put them on hold. So yeah, maybe not quite the one-sided affair it seemed when Rockstar first released this patch. It's pretty obvious that there's quite a few upset and irritated people behind the scenes. Still, here are some of the improvements that Rockstar Games have made to the experience. So yeah, it's impressive really to see this late in the game, but I think it is something that they needed to do for their own legacy, I guess, if that's not too melodramatic. These are some of the most loved games in history, and having rubbish versions of them is it's not a good look, is it? So yeah, an amazing patch up really there, and maybe some still, little bits and bobs to do, because there are still a couple of glitches and there are still a couple of missing things that, haven't been in these versions. So yeah, there's maybe a little bit more just to put the icing on the cake, so to speak. The last one to look at then is DROVA. Now, if you're not sure what DROVA is, it was based on the likes of Morrowind, Skyrim, and classic CRPGs, and it's actually an action RPG, and it's fantastic. Love this game so much, but during the review period, it was appalling. And then a patch came out just before the review was due to go live. I had to go back and redo that section. And here were my initial thoughts. It does still struggle when loading in new areas. Sometimes you'll actually see the world build around you. We've seen similar things with 3D and Unreal Engine 4, but I've never seen it in a 2D world. I haven't had a crash since updating to this version, so that's good. And the menus and everything like that now function correctly, and it just feels so much more complete than it did during the first 10 hours of my play. With the latest version, performance is almost perfect. They've locked it at 30, which is a really sensible decision here. And as you can see, frame pacing is really good at 33.3 almost constantly. It's just a really enjoyable game to play, this one. I know it doesn't relate to performance, but it certainly helps now, because before we had things like full texture load-ins. You'd go into a new area and it would be blank and then the textures would stream in. I haven't seen that anymore. Load times seem a little improved, although they weren't really an issue before either. It's that performance that was the main one for me. And if you like, Morrowind, or you like those old school RPGs, something like Gothic but in the 2D view, this is really such a good game. Go check out my full review of it. It's fantastic. There was a moment in the review that a lot of people kind of instantly went out and purchased the game. There was an early quest where a guy's like, hey, if you do this for me, I'll give you my armor. And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever you say. And then as soon as he walked off, I went to his tent, stole the armor. I walked out and talked to him and he was like, excuse me, what the hell are you doing? If you don't put that back, I'm going to kill you. I didn't put it back. I died. That's, it's pretty cool, isn't it? Nice bit of script in there. And it's one of those as well that has those little side experiences, like you can go work down the mines for a while. Yeah, I love this, man. Great game. Anyway, I got completely sidetracked. There are a couple of other games that I will be looking and adding into my next all patched up episode. Things like Remastered, which has had another performance patch. Is it fixed? Nah, I don't think so. Plucky Squires also had 1.0.5, so you can expect that in the next video. But are there any other games that you'd like to see revisited as well? Let me know down in the comments. As always, a big thanks to all of you, our Patreons, our members. As always, for all things Switch, all the time, keep it Switch up. Cheers, guys. See ya!